Ethan was gone, just like that. No sound, no struggle. 1 minute he was there, the next he was gone, sucked down by something that shouldn't even exist. And all I could do was stand there, my fingers still grasping at empty air, my breath frozen somewhere in my chest. I think that's when I heard them. Whispers drifting in the fog, mocking me. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe the fog was just playing tricks. But I swear there were voices in that fog. It was like they were laughing. At me, at Ethan, at all of it. It all started early that morning. Too early, really. I'd barely gotten any sleep, mostly because Angela was fussing the night before about the forecast. She's always worrying about something. The kids, the bills, the weather. This time it was the storm. I tried telling her it's just another day out there, but she wasn't buying it. She called twice when I was packing up the truck, telling me Cedar River was going to be a death trap in a storm. I told her storms make for good fishing, and that was that. If she was mad, I didn't have time to notice. Ethan tagged along that day. Kid was green, always wanting to prove he could handle it. He's young, eager, doesn't believe in much besides what he can see. I'd warned him about Cedar River, about the fog and the weird stuff I'd seen before, but he laughed it off. Called it campfire crap. You'd think after all the time we spent on the water, he'd at least learn to respect it. But no, he had that look in his eye, like he was gonna conquer it. We got there just before dawn. Fog already rolling in thick over the river. That kind of thick that makes it look like the world just ends a few feet ahead. It always does that at Cedar. Ethan made some dumb joke about ghosts, and I chuckled, but I didn't really think it was funny. There's always something about that fog that rubs me the wrong way, like it's hiding something from you, like it knows something you don't. We cast our lines, and time passed. Ethan, loud as ever, was yapping about his big plans. He had this way of talking like he was trying to be heard over something, like he was scared of the quiet. I didn't really listen, just kept my eyes on the water. That's when I saw it. Shapes out there in the fog. Moving, but slow. Not like people, but like shadows. Dark enough to cut through all that white mist. I tried telling Ethan, but he just laughed. Said I was trying to spook him. Yeah, right. Then his line caught on something. He pulled, harder and harder, and it wasn't budging. I figured it was a log, maybe old junk. But he pulled it up, and it was a jacket, torn up, all muddy and soaked. The weirdest part was the marks. Deep, jagged, like something took a real bad swipe at it. Ethan made some joke, but I could see he wasn't laughing for real this time. I didn't like it. I told him to toss it, leave it be, but he kept messing with it, acting like it was nothing. That's when the fog got thicker, too thick. I could barely see Ethan next to me, and then I heard it, whispering from everywhere. Not words, just sounds, like 100 people all mumbling at once. I looked at Ethan, tried to ask if he heard it, but he wasn't listening. He was staring at the water, his eyes fixed on something. I shouted his name, grabbed his arm, and he jerked away. I swear he looked at me like he didn't even know me, like I was a stranger. I tried calling Angela. No signal. Of course not, right? Typical. I was about to yell at Ethan again when I felt it. Something brushing against my leg, under the water. I jumped, nearly lost my balance. And then Ethan. He just went. Like something grabbed him, pulled him under, and he was gone before I even knew what was happening. I reached out, but it was too late. The water went flat. No ripples, no bubbles, no sign he'd even been there. I ran. I don't know where I was going, just had to get away from that water, from that fog. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, just kept stumbling, hearing those whispers, feeling eyes on me. I finally made it to shore, collapsed there, shaking, feeling like I was still being watched. I don't know how long I was there before they found me. Cops said they couldn't find Ethan. Said maybe he got swept downstream. Maybe it was an accident. I tried to tell them, but they just looked at me like I was crazy. Angela, she knew something was wrong. She could tell by looking at me that it wasn't just the storm, but I couldn't say it. Couldn't tell her about the whispers, the shadows, the way Ethan's eyes looked right before he went under. She kept asking, kept trying to get me to talk, But what could I say? How do you explain something like that? I still hear it sometimes late at night, the whispers drifting in, like the fog found its way back to me. And I think about Ethan, and how maybe he's still out there, somewhere, stuck in that fog, waiting for me to come back. But I won't. Not ever. Story 2. The sun was almost gone. It left this thin line of light on the horizon, and that's when I saw it. Just standing there in the lake, half submerged like it belonged there. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. It looked at me, cold, hollow. I swear to God, I felt the ground move under me. But Marcus just laughed like a fool. We should have never come here. Should have stayed in the city where the worst you had to deal with were broken streetlights and junkies on corners. But Marcus thought it was a good idea. One of those get-away-from-it-all kind of deals. Forget about work. Forget about ex-wives and mortgages. Just him, me, and Lucy, his dog. Oh, and fishing rods, of course. That was Marcus's big pitch. We'll fish our worries away, Danny, just like old times. So, stupid me, I packed my gear, thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd finally get a good night's sleep out there. We drove out early, roads getting narrower, turning into dirt tracks, until we were more bumping than driving. Marcus said he knew about this place from some old guy he met at a bait shop. Apparently it's some forgotten lake, abandoned because no one cares to hike this far in. Felt like it was forgotten for a reason, but I didn't say anything. When Marcus gets an idea in his head, it's like trying to argue with a wall. He was all smiles, acting like it was the perfect plan, but I could see his hands shaking on the wheel every time we hit a rut. I knew about the nightmares, about the pills he kept hidden in his glove box. PTSD. He never talked about it, and I never asked. When we got there, the cabin was just as crappy as I imagined. Small, barely holding itself together, like the wind could blow it over. The door was half open. Marcus just strolled right up and kicked it open the rest of the way like it was his own house. There were these scratches, deep ones, on the door. Bare, maybe. I mean, it made sense, but I didn't like it. Felt like something was wrong. But Marcus laughed it off. Just nature, Danny boy. And he walked right in. Lucy, she didn't look so sure either. Her ears all back, eyes darting around like she knew something we didn't. Night came quick. Too quick. The woods were dark, a kind of dark you don't get in the city. No streetlights, no headlights, nothing but shadows on shadows. Marcus lit a fire, started telling some story about basic training, something dumb that made him laugh. I tried to laugh with him, but Lucy was restless, barking at nothing, at the dark. I felt it too, like eyes were on us, like we weren't alone. Marcus kept dismissing it, throwing more wood on the fire, but his eyes kept shifting to the edge of the woods. Then came the whispers. Real low, almost like the wind, but too steady, too deliberate. I looked out toward the lake and, I swear, there was someone there, knee-deep in the water, just standing. Marcus said I was seeing things, said it was just my anxiety talking. But it wasn't just that. I know what I saw. Lucy went missing sometime after midnight. 1 minute she was there, the next, just gone. Her leash was snapped, like something pulled her away. Marcus grabbed a flashlight, marched into the woods, calling for her, acting like he had it all under control. We found this patch of flattened grass, smelled like something died there. Marcus didn't say anything, just turned back to the cabin. His face was pale, like he finally realized this wasn't just another camping trip. Later that night we heard it, a loud thud against the cabin door. It made me jump out of my skin. Marcus grabbed the flashlight, swung the door open. There it was, Lucy's collar, muddy, torn, hanging from the handle. That was it for me. I wanted out. I begged Marcus, but he said it was too dangerous to leave in the dark, that we'd get lost or worse. He was scared too, I could see it, but he tried to hide it. Said we'd leave at first light. We didn't make it that far. We were hiking back at dawn, just the two of us. Or maybe it was 3. Felt like someone, something, was walking with us, just beyond the trees, out of sight. I tried to tell Marcus, but he told me to keep moving, his voice shaky. Then out of nowhere, I felt it. Cold. Fast. Something brushed past me and Marcus. He was gone. No sound. No struggle. Just gone. I called out, screamed his name until my throat burned, but there was nothing. Just silence. They found me 2 days later, wandering, out of it. I don't remember much after Marcus disappeared. They said I was lucky to be alive, but it didn't feel like luck. The lake got closed off after that. Too many questions. Not enough answers. They never found Marcus. Never found Lucy. And me? I never went fishing again. Story 3. Water was dark, and Kevin was gone. I never imagined it would end like this. His laughter turning into that final scream, then nothing but empty waves. I can still see that stupid abandoned boat drifting, like it knew something we didn't. I wish I had listened to Laura, but by then, there was nothing left to do but watch, breathless, as Kevin vanished into the cold, black water. It started off simple enough, just a fishing trip with Kevin, my nephew. The guy was always a smartass, always thought my stories were overblown, like I was making it up just to impress people. Maybe I was sometimes, but not about the lake, and sure as hell not about the boat. Laura warned me that morning, said she'd heard things about the abandoned boat out there. People said it was cursed. Laura's always had a thing for local gossip, always too superstitious for my liking. I laughed it off. Hell, we both did. Kevin, fresh from the city, just smirked like he couldn't believe the hicks out here still believed in ghost stories. He came out to prove something, I think. Show the old man he wasn't scared of some rotting boat drifting in the middle of nowhere. We loaded up my boat, me and Kevin, heading out to the middle of the lake. The sun was low. I remember that. It was getting late, but Kevin didn't care. He had this whole city boy swagger going, like he knew better than anyone. The lake was still as glass, no wind, no noise, just us and the water. It felt wrong. Should have trusted that gut feeling. But Kevin, well, he's young, dumb, and bulletproof, right? Laura said folks had seen symbols carved on that boat. Weird stuff that didn't belong. But to me, it was just a piece of junk someone forgot to sink. When we finally got to it, there it was, just floating, rotten wood with those strange carvings, half covered in grime and algae. It didn't feel right, not then, not when I saw it up close. It was just sitting there, empty, waiting. I told Kevin to leave it alone. He just laughed. Kevin said he was going to hop on, just to prove it wasn't haunted or whatever crap they'd been talking about. I told him it was a bad idea. The boat looked ready to fall apart, and I didn't want him getting tetanus or some other kind of infection from that junk, but he just gave me that grin of his and jumped over anyway. The boat rocked, and for a second I thought it was going to tip right over, maybe take Kevin down with it. He was laughing, making jokes about how creepy the old carvings looked. But then, things changed. I heard this soft splash. Kevin laughed again, said it was a fish. But there weren't any fish around. The water was too still. No ripples, no movement, just quiet and cold. I remember that. It got cold, like someone had opened a door to a freezer. Then Kevin went quiet. He was staring at something inside the boat. I called out to him, asked what was up. He didn't answer, just kept staring. I got closer, and that's when I saw it. A wet handprint on the bench. Dark, fresh, like someone had just pressed their hand down into the wood. And then Kevin screamed. It wasn't just a yell. It was like something had grabbed him, something he didn't see coming. He fell back, arms flailing, and the next thing I knew he was gone. Just like that. Slipped off the edge, into the water, like he'd been yanked under. I didn't think. I jumped in after him, the cold hitting me like a wall. But there was nothing there. Just black water, deep and empty. I swear I felt something wrap around my leg, something that wanted me too. I kicked, fought, and somehow made it back to my boat, coughing and shaking. When I looked around, the abandoned boat had drifted away, like it wanted no part of what had just happened. And Kevin was gone. No trace, no bubbles, nothing. Just the cold, empty lake staring back at me. I got back to shore eventually, shaking, feeling like I'd left part of myself out there with him. Laura was waiting, and I didn't have the words to tell her what happened. She knew, though. I could see it in her eyes. She knew I saw something out there. They say the boat's still out there, drifting around like it always does. I haven't gone back. Laura says I shouldn't, and I'm not arguing. I still see it sometimes, though, in my head. Kevin, laughing, then screaming, then gone. And that damn boat, just floating there, like it was watching the whole time.